and welcome to this video on the most important quantum truth. Well, I'm seeing it as the most important quantum truth at this time. So we're in the middle of a great awakening. I don't need to tell you that. What it means to each person individually is probably going to be quite different. But generally speaking, it's the great awakening of humanity. Now, what are humanity waking up to? This, I think, is a very important point, because the first step of waking up, I think, was given to us on a plate in 2020, is waking up to the reality of what we've been living in, and how we've been duped and misled, and programmed, and all of those things. That's an important step. That's the first step, though. That isn't the only step, because the real great awakening, of course, is us waking up and realizing, because this awakening is about self-realization. So it's waking up to the fact that we are energy beings. We are multi-dimensional beings. We live in a quantum universe, and that universe is governed by frequency. Now, we hear a lot of stuff, okay, and I get how it works. You know, we have to hear stuff, and it kind of comes in on some level, but it takes us a while to actually integrate new concepts, higher vibrating concepts, into the cells of our body, and to actually apply those concepts in our life. So it does kind of take time. But we've heard a lot of these things. We've heard that time is an illusion, that reality is an illusion. It was Albert Einstein that said, I think, that reality is an illusion, but a very persistent illusion. It's difficult for us to fully take on, you know, how massive that concept is. We hear a lot of quantum truths, and on some level, they resonate with us, don't they? On some level, we can feel that there is some truth in it. But while we're in the density of the third dimension, you know, we can't live according to those quantum truths. That's what we kind of struggle with. And that is our great awakening, is understanding that we talk about sovereign as well. The word sovereign has been coming up a lot in the Truther community. I was going to call this a message for the Truther community. I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, you could sovereign, but really, what does that mean? I mean, we're taking on that identity of being sovereign, as in no one outside of me can tell me what to do. You know, I have this sense of freedom, and self-protection and stuff like that, which we've been embodying for the last few years. Agreed. But really, it goes much deeper than that. Understanding our sovereignty goes much deeper than that, because I want to call it understanding our power. And again, we hear this all the time. We're more powerful than we realize. You know, your love and light. You know, we hear these things, and still we don't realize how powerful we are. And then when we are faced with perhaps operating from that place of power, we still have these limiting beliefs come up. I'm not good enough. I can't do it. I can't afford it. What will people think of me? I mean, all sorts of things coming up. And then we get stuck in that, what Eckhart Tolle calls the pain body, you know, that dense part of us, which is, I call it trapped emotions and limiting beliefs. Paul Selig channels the guides, and he calls it boulders. But different people have different names for it. Pain body is a good one. So that with the density of our trapped emotions, the emotions that we're hanging on to, and that we're not processing, and also the limiting beliefs, because we just can't fathom, our human minds cannot fathom how powerful we are. So I kind of want to start off with a quote from Rumi, who said, "You're not just a drop in the ocean. You're the whole ocean in one drop. So what he meant by that, I'm assuming, is that you're not just a human being in the universe. You are the whole universe in one human being. Now, one of the reasons, I mean, I've been inspired to do this video, but I'm kind of aware that when I'm inspired to do these things, it's for my own benefit, of course, because we are creating our reality in every now moment for our own benefit. So my videos are very much for me to use, almost like myself as a sounding board, or just to when we express things, it helps us consolidate them, and it helps us embody them, and it helps us embody the truth of those words. And for me, who's working with no notes or anything, it helps me tap into any kind of inspiration that comes along the way. So it's always for my benefit. We do everything for our own benefit, but we're just not always aware of it. But understanding this concept that we are the whole universe in one human being is difficult to get our head around. But I want to invite you to pretend that you believe that. I found this really works because I could feel on some level that it was true with the whole universe in one human being. But it's such a massive concept to get a human mind around that it's so easy to dismiss it. So I'm inviting you to pretend that you believe that you are the whole universe in one human being. Now, we have a phrase also, the all that is. A lot of people use this phrase, the all that is, consciousness, the infinite field. I mean, it has many different names. You know what I mean, right? Well, in that field, everything exists. Everything exists. That's why it's called the all that is. Now, if you study the Hermetic principles, right, there's 7 Hermetic principles. The first of the 7 Hermetic principles is the principle of mentalism. And basically, the universe is mental. If you can think something or imagine it, then it's possible. Now, if anybody has ever thought anything, it's possible. So that's why we say there is this field that is infinite possibilities, and it is the all that is. It's the everything that everyone has ever thought about or imagined. Get your head round that. Okay, it's massive. So everything is in existence, and it always has been. I mean, I don't know so much about the time business, but everything's in existence. But you only get to experience that which you resonate with. This is the most important point. You only get to experience that which you resonate with. Now, we know from Nikola Tesla, again, a lot of people quote Nikola Tesla. I've had his quote on my website for years, but really understanding, it's so simple. If you want to know the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. And it's not, I mean, the secrets of the universe is, do you want to know the secrets of everything and anything? The secrets of your success, the secrets of joy, love, happiness, peace, harmony, enlightenment. It's all down to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. So you're going to only experience that which you resonate with. And we've also heard many times that what you put your consciousness on, which means your awareness, which means your attention, you energize it. Now, a lot of people are talking about this, because a lot of people are talking about the evil and the negative things going on. I don't even want to use the word negative because, okay, so there's a lot of people are talking about these things. And then other people are saying, you mustn't focus on that. And then they're going, but it's happening. We have to do something. Okay, that's where a lot of people are at. And And the thing that we need to do is to not focus on it. But that sounds like you're putting your head in the sand. It sounds like you're turning your back on the victims. I think this is what comes up. People feel like they're turning their back on the victim. And this is where the differences of opinion lie. And there's so many things that I want to say, and I can't say them all at once. Because the difference in opinion, our opinions and our thoughts and our beliefs resonate at the frequency that we are at. Our thoughts and our beliefs change as we raise our frequency, as we expand into higher levels of consciousness. I want to show the charts, which I'm sure everyone has seen before. Okay, so this chart, which comes from it's a small part of Dr. David Hawkins' map of consciousness from his book Power versus Force. And you can see where it says expanded and contracted. So the expanded state is when we are in our power. And the contracted state is when, if we want to get anything done, we have to force the action. His book is called Power versus Force because our power lies in this expanded state and not in a contracted state. So in a contracted state, if we're vibrating at that level, we're fighting and everything's a struggle and it's difficult. And we're pushing energy where energy doesn't want to go. Right? Because we're pushing against the system. That's why he calls it force, because we're forcing things. When you're in an expanded state, your divinity flows through you and carries you. You actually don't have to do anything. You get carried through with your inspiration and your desires and your creativity and the joy that you feel about carrying out your inspirations. And you get to the state where you'll be inspired to do something and it might make you nervous, like doing videos like this, for example. But if you don't do it, you're going to feel even more uncomfortable. So you get pushed, but from a place of power, from a place of expansion, rather than a place of contraction or fear. Now, everything can be measured on this chart. But as I said, this chart is only a small part of the actual map of consciousness, which for copyright reasons, I'm not allowed to show. You can show it, I can show it to small numbers of people. I think it's a maximum of 10, I was told when I asked. I have got a version of the chart in my books. My first book, Heal Yourself to Happiness, is actually free to download from my website at deborahjanesutton.com. And I talk about this there and I go into greater detail on it in my second book, Heal Your Soul, which is available from Amazon. But we're not allowed to print, for copyright reasons, the actual original map of consciousness from Dr. David Hawkins, even though he's not with us anymore, and I'm sure he would want us to. And maybe that is a rule that I should break, but I don't feel like doing it at the moment. But this is you can see it's got the list of, it's called levels of consciousness. And then you've got the frequency next to it. And a lot of people have used this chart. Everything can be measured on this chart. Books, countries, films, people, thoughts, ideas, everything really. And it's kind of important. Obviously, we're not comparing. It's not a race. There's nothing like that. We're in the now. But the reason that it's important to understand is because people's opinions and their actions, that's an important point, are going to resonate at the frequency that they are. So if somebody is operating from a low level of guilt or shame, they're going to create opportunities for more guilt and shame, because the frequency that we are is reflected back to us in our holographic projection that we're calling life, in our reality, what we're calling reality, the illusion that we're calling reality is a holographic projection of the frequency that we are. And we have like tens of thousands or tens of trillions of cells in the body, and we have different emotions trapped in them. So we could be kind of really high vibrating, but still have some trapped emotions of shame or guilt or grief or fear or anger that come up, obviously. So, and we're also processing so much at the moment because of the Great Awakening. So we are processing a lot of our own emotions from this lifetime. That's your first port of call. And then after that, you know, you've got inherited emotions or pain body or whatever you want to call it from your biological parents and your ancestors. We've got a lot of past life stuff. I do past life healing as well, not just the emotional healing and the heart wall healing with the emotion code, but also with the soul realignments. I've been doing past life healings, and we carry a lot of energy in the cells of our body from other lifetimes. So we need to step out of denial about having these trapped emotions within us. And we need to step out of denial about having evil within us. Because what I find with the past life healings is that people identify really readily with being a victim. I mean, a lot of people have said to me, they know that they were burnt at the stake. You know, a lot of us were, you know, the witches and stuff. And we carry trauma. And a lot of our phobias and things like that from this lifetime will have their underlying cause in another lifetime, especially if it was an emotion that you felt on the time that you transitioned, you know, if you had a sudden death or something in that lifetime. But also what people have a problem with is identifying with being the perpetrator. Now, remember what we said in the beginning about the Rumi quote, we are the whole universe in one human being. So we have been the perpetrators as well. And people are struggling to take that on board. You haven't always been that conscious. I'm always having to tell clients when I do the past life healings, be prepared. You haven't always been this conscious. And we wake up spiritually through trauma and through the trauma that other people create for us, or we have agreed that they can, but also trauma that we've created ourselves when we've been the perpetrator, when we've made mistakes and we've behaved unconsciously. I don't really want to say mistakes because it's all part of creation and it's all part of our evolution. So I don't want to talk about good and bad, right and wrong. Okay. I want to talk about conscious behavior and less conscious behavior. Still now, we might be behaving more consciously, but there's still parts of our life where we're not behaving consciously. Until we love everyone and everything, then we're still behaving unconsciously, aren't we? So there's still, you know, areas for improvement on that. But if we look back in our other lifetimes, or even in this lifetime or whatever, you know, we're carrying energy. It could be guilt and shame from the behavior that we had in other lifetimes. And we have been less conscious, of course, because it's a path of evolution, isn't it? So we need to get out of denial about that. And you know, I've seen many times where we've been the perpetrator. Clients in the past life healings have been the perpetrator in other lifetimes, and I myself. Just one example, when I went to India, I was very aware that I had had many Indian lifetimes, and I was experiencing them when I was there. It was a surreal trip to India for me, and I was happily embodying this beautiful energy of being Indian, living in the country. I was a little boy at school. I mean, really, it was poor but happy, and I was really quite enjoying it until suddenly I kind of woke up to being a white woman in history in India, thinking from England, thinking that she was really lovely to her Indian servants because she actually paid them a little bit and gave them half a day a week off. So compared to her friends, she was lovely. And this is interesting because often unconscious behavior at the time, I've noticed this as well with the work that I do, at the time is viewed from a completely different perception. So in that lifetime, I thought that I was very caring to my Indian servants. But at that time, in that lifetime, I still thought they were beneath me. So I was racist in some way, obviously. And yet, now it'd be easy to go, I'm not racist, I'm not racist. But it was in the cells of my body and it came up. And that realization that I had been racist in that lifetime, even though I thought at the time I was doing everything well and right and I was good, and I thought, oh, they're going to want to come and work for me because I pay them something. Other people were just getting paid their board and food. Um, so that's just one example, and I've got other examples as well of a client who trying to in this lifetime trying for a baby and had an energy of undeserving coming up to be a mum, undeserving to be a mum, and she had a past life of being a backstreet abortionist, and the soul now was kind of shocked by this and judgmental of it, but at the time in that lifetime she was operating from the heart and she was helping women that were in a terrible situation, women that were going to have worse consequences if they didn't do it, or perceived worst consequences or whatever. So it was a very different situation. And she was actually operating from the heart, wanting to help these women and young girls that were in this situation at that time, in that location that past life was. And you can see where judgment comes in. These are just two examples I'm giving now, but you can see where judgment comes in. We judge stuff so much, and that's what causes all the problems, and that's what causes all the suffering. Whereas if we can just look back and see it without judgment and just see it as unconscious behavior. Okay, so my previous life, the English woman in India, she was just behaving in a less conscious way. But she was probably behaving in a more conscious way than her friends, but less conscious than me now. So, and that's how it works. So my point with all of this is that we need to get out of denial of having these energies, this shame, this guilt, and this anger and whatever these low frequency emotions are within the cells of our body. We can't have that righteousness feeling because we have been everything and everyone. We are the whole universe. So this is quite easy to get to, right, at this point, until we look at the evil in the world. And then we look at the evil in the world, and then this is what stops us. And this is where I'm at, honestly. I'm seeing the divinity in everyone and everything. So I can see the divinity in the English woman in India that I live. I can see her divinity. I can even see the divinity in the backstreet abortionist. I can see the divinity, but there's so much evil, right, that we've uncovered in the last few years. Some people uncovered it earlier, of course, that we can't see the divinity in any of it. This is our biggest block, I think, and this is where most of us are at. But I want to relate it to this chart, because how you view things is dependent on where you are on this chart. If you're triggered by my words listening to this, it's going to be dependent on how triggered you are, in what way you're triggered, what beliefs are coming up for you as I speak, is going to be dependent on where you are vibrating on this chart. So somebody vibrating at a level, an overriding level, we all have some guilt, some shame, some of this. Okay, but I'm talking about your default setting. Okay. So if somebody had shame and guilt as their default setting, they're not going to be resonating with this video at all. So they won't be watching it. People operating at a level of fear, when they find out about what's been going on in the world, the fear will step in so much so that they'll probably go into cognitive dissonance. And I think a lot of you are aware of people that you know who are suffering from cognitive dissonance, because the fear is too great for them to deal with. But that shows that they're operating at that level, which is why they are creating their own suffering. Okay, and they're in a contracted state. Okay, I'm going to look at the other chart as well, because what's in alignment at this level, and what resonates at the same level, because this only has fear, right? The big chart that I was talking about earlier on has much more. And it's also at the same level of the emotion anxiety, of course, withdrawal, that's the cognitive dissonance, withdrawing from the truth. Their view of life is actually quite frightening. And their view of God, if we're going to use that word, source, creator, whatever you want to call it, is a punishing one. You know, but this is taken from the bigger chart, but it gives you a greater idea of that level of consciousness. What takes you out of that level of consciousness is a desire for change. Okay, and you can see desire is on the chart. And people just constantly desire a situation that isn't the one that they're in. They just desire a nicer feeling, I think is the best way to explain it. And then you come to anger, because then when people have actually accepted the truth of what's going on in the world, I think we can all relate to this, can't we? Then we're at a level of anger. And this anger, I've talked about this before in previous videos, but this anger is making us angry. But how is our reality created? Let's remember, there is nothing outside of us that can make us feel anything. This is such an important point that people don't get. You are the creator of your own reality, and the anger within the cells of your own body is what is creating the angry situations and angry people outside of you. Inside first. The inside creates the outside. Okay? As within, without. The outside is not creating the inside. When we say something like, he made me angry, now, this is about understanding triggers. I have a video on understanding triggers. I will put a link in the description and the video in the end screen. Otherwise, this video will go on for too long. Understanding that it's your anger and the frequency of your anger, like attracts like, remember, the frequency of your anger is going to get reflected back to you in a situation or a person that is going to be angry. It's going to be at the same frequency as your anger. Okay, so angry people often create more angry situations for themselves. And the good thing about anger, of course, is angry people want change, and they demand change, and they behave in a way that wants change. So it's more conscious than someone who is apathetic, for example, who is probably depressed at that level, and who doesn't care about anything. So wanting change is good, but the trouble with anger, people at this level, is that they are expecting the people outside of them to change. They want people outside of them to change because they don't understand it's what's within them that is creating the outside of them. What's within them is creating their reality. They don't get that. So therefore, they just want to be angry with everybody, and they think that everybody else needs to change. Whereas in fact, when we can take responsibility for the emotions that are coming up within us when we're triggered, actually we want to give blessings and love to whoever it was that we think made us angry, because they are just reflecting back. They're holding a mirror up. It's like someone holds a mirror up to your face and you go, oh, go away. I don't like that. I don't like what I'm looking at. You're wrong. And it's just like, well, I'm just holding a mirror up to your own face. But anyway, So then we get up to this pride, there's your ego coming in, and then courage, because it does take courage. It does take courage to step into this place of expansion. Courage and neutrality. Well, I always say willingness. Willingness is the doorway to enlightenment, or willingness is the doorway, the gateway to love. But courage as well, because this is where we have to see things from a more expanded state, and it means looking at ourselves from a more expanded state, which means seeing all the darkness and seeing the shadows and realizing the anger and the fear and the grief and the guilt and the shame, and realizing that it's all within us. That takes a lot of courage to take that on. And on the bigger chart, courage is the tipping point between being in a state of contraction and a state of expansion. The universe is always expanding, and we want to expand with it. So this is a really crucial point. The emotion at the time is affirmation. Affirmation. I love this word. It's about affirming who you are, of course, and just positive. The word affirmation just means yes, positive, and just choosing to look at things from that more positive viewpoint. And the process is empowerment, because this is where your empowerment starts. When you really start empowering yourself, going back to sovereignty, which we've already talked about. And it is feasible. Your view of life becomes feasible. You're like, you can't see it now, you're just getting by, but it's feasible. That you can actually change your life around, that you can actually find another way. And your view of God at this level is permitting. It's like God, source, creator, is allowing. Something's coming through, something's happening, but you're not quite sure what. This is where we step into the willingness. And I have a video on the power of willingness. So I'll put a link in the description and the video in the end screen to that one as well. But there is a willingness that's needed, a willingness to love yourself, a willingness to trust yourself, a willingness to let go of the ego, a willingness to let go of everything you've learned, a willingness to let go of those beliefs that you've rigidly held on to. Because as you work your way up this chart, your beliefs are going to change. At the bottom of this chart, you think the world is a dangerous place. At the top of this chart, it's heaven on earth. And the only thing that's changed is your level of consciousness, which changes when you raise your frequency. So you want to go from a reality that is suffering to a reality that is heaven on earth. Then it's about you raising your frequency. How do we raise our frequency? It's all in the first book, Heal Yourself to Happiness, but it is about taking responsibility for, acknowledging, honoring, and releasing and processing these low frequency emotions from within us, and getting out of denial about having them. So it's a willingness to do the inner work, I want to say, and a willingness to face your vulnerability. So the way you look at things in life is going to change. Also a willingness to forgive. Now, forgiveness is massive, because people at the bottom of this chart struggle with forgiving anybody. Okay, dog eat dog. It's that kind of energy to the reality that they're creating. And then you get to the stage where, with forgiveness, you think, right, well, I'm going to walk away from this negative situation and start making a better life for yourself. You might start working on yourself and loving yourself to some degree. You're not really forgiving, but you've loved yourself enough to get yourself out of the situation. And you know that you have to forgive these people, these perpetrators. Okay. And then this is why I've got a video called The Path to Forgiveness. I'll put a link in the description to that as well, and the video in the end screen. It is a path, because your concept, your perception, I should say, of forgiveness is going to change as you expand into higher levels of consciousness. So as you go up this chart, your concept of forgiveness is going to change. And it might start off that you think you have to forgive the other person. And then when you realize that you are the creator of your own reality, and that person was reflecting back to you your own energy. I always use my first marriage as an example in this. So it was a very dysfunctional and quite chaotic relationship. And now I realize that my first husband was just reflecting back to me my own lack of self-love. So I have to take responsibility for that because I didn't love myself. Obviously, I didn't love myself. So I put myself in a relationship where I wasn't loved or respected. And he just reflected back to me that lack of love and respect. But I was the creator. But you don't see it like that at the time. At the time, I'm like, I can't live like this, so I'm leaving. And then I went and started to learn to love myself. And then when you expand into higher levels of consciousness, you look back and realize, hang on a minute, he did that for me. And I look at this scenario where you're before you incarnate as souls, you're having a conversation. And it's like we all know that we wake up more readily when we have trauma, when we have adversity of some kind, whether we've created it ourselves or whether somebody else, we are co-creating with them. So a lot of souls are like, okay, I'm going to give you some trauma, and I'm going to do it because I love you and I want you to wake up to how important it is to love yourself. And so, and at the time, I imagined my soul would have said, would you do that for me? Will you do that with me? We're going to meet, we're going to get married, we're going to have a really dysfunctional relationship that can be really toxic to each other, unhealthy, I want to say. And you're prepared to do that with me just so that we can learn the importance of self-love. And yeah, I'm going to do that, So now I look at it like that. So then you look and you think, oh my God, he did that for me. And then I start feeling like I need to forgive myself. So I've got to forgive myself for that. And then you think, well, hang on a minute. If I'm not judging myself, because I'm just creating and I'm just evolving and I'm just learning as I go, and I'm just learning through my own creative, realities, then there is no judgment. I'm not going to judge myself. I was behaving less consciously. He was behaving less consciously. Now I'm behaving more consciously. Now I've met another husband who's more conscious and is reflecting back to me my self-love. So if you want people around you to love you and respect you, it starts with you loving and respecting yourself. And then when you realize that there's no judgment to any behavior, then you realize that you don't need to forgive anybody anyway. So it's not about forgiving them. It's not even about forgiving yourself. It's just about accepting that there's creation and that you're part of this evolution process and you're creating and learning as you go. There is no right and wrong. There is no good and bad. And therefore, if there's no judgment, there's no need for forgiveness. There's your path to forgiveness. But your perception of it will depend on where you are on this chart. Okay, how do you view reality? That's what I said to you. When you raise your frequency and expand into higher levels of consciousness, your perception of life changes. So when you get up to this acceptance, now acceptance is really important because acceptance is in alignment with forgiveness. So if you want to access love and you want to resonate as your default setting, we can all tap into love. Of course we can. We can have those moments, but I'm talking about your overall default setting. If you want to live at that level of consciousness, love is a level of consciousness. And when you're vibrating at that level, you're just going to love I don't even use the word work because play becomes work. Work becomes play. But you're going to have loving people around you, loving situations around you, loving ideas, it's, but to get there, you have to have risen above the energies of acceptance and forgiveness. That's what's on this chart. Transcendence, harmonious. Your view of life is harmonious when everything is in harmony. And that reminds me of a quote I heard: the true happiness, about happiness. Happiness is when what you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. What you think, what you say, and what you do are in harmony. And that's so often not the case, isn't it? We can be in situations whereby we're thinking one thing and we're feeling like we can't say it, or we might say it to somebody, but we feel like we can't do it. You know, to get yourself into a situation where you can actually think and then say what you're thinking and then do what you're saying. That's harmony. And that's when true happiness comes in. So that harmonious energy is here at the level of acceptance. Okay, so if you want to tap into love and above, the joy is at the same level as serenity, a view of God being all one, the all that is. Okay, so I mean, other beliefs that change as you go up here is your view of life. You know, at the bottom of this chart, you're going to think that life happens to you, that you're a victim of circumstance to your life, and then you're going to realize that life happens for you, for your benefit. When you get to the middle of this chart, you realize that everything's happening for your benefit, even the adversity, even the negative situations, even the trauma that you've been through. Who hasn't been through trauma on some level or another? Okay, but it all happened for your benefit. How many of us can look back at trauma and go, well, yes, it wasn't very nice at the time, but if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be where I am now. Look back at your life and see. And that's when you can look back with blessings and love and gratitude for your trauma. That's a massive turnaround point. That takes you out of victimhood and puts you into power, puts you into the expanded state of power. When you realize that life is happening for your benefit, you are creating your own reality. Of course, it's happening for your benefit. When you get higher up this chart, to the level of love and above, that's when you realize that actually life flows through you. It doesn't just happen for you, but life is flowing through you when you've learned to let go and you've learned to release all your expectations, all your limiting beliefs, all these ideas that are holding you back. And you just let that divinity flow through you and follow your own inspiration and your own desires, and just be rather than do. And then when I think of the hanged man, because in tarot, I always think the hanged man is doing that. He's hanging there, chilling, looking at life from another perspective. But actually, the meaning means don't force any action, but it doesn't mean don't take action. It just means that the action that you take is choiceless and effortless and joyful. So you'll be inspired. And like I said before about doing this video, it's like the inspiration came, you might be a bit nervous, but it'd be more uncomfortable not to do it. And so therefore, that's inspiration flowing through you. When you take that kind of action, that's life flowing through you, and you are just literally a vessel. And we talk about being a human vessel, and I hadn't really clicked before how a vessel is just carrying the energy. It's taking the non-physical consciousness and it's coming through us. We are the ones that put it into reality. We create the reality from the non-physical consciousness. And the reality that we create and the human bodies that we're in are a reflection of the emotions, which are non-physical, and the beliefs and the thoughts, which are non-physical. The beliefs and the thoughts and the emotions are all in our fourth dimensional energy body. But we hold on to them and they create physical issues with our third dimensional physical body. Okay, so any illnesses, ailments, any problems that we have are caused by us not processing these emotions and beliefs and things like that. People that have negative emotions trapped into the cells of their body, you know, over time, you can tell they're feeling, you know, it shows in their body, doesn't it? It's like Bruce Lipton says, your biography becomes your biology. Your life experiences are in the cells of your body. So if you view them as negative and you have resentment and bitterness and anger and hatred and all of these things, it's going to show in your body. And if you have hatred in your body, it's the opposite of love. Well, there is no opposite of love, really, but you know what I mean. It's gonna cause you an issue because it's such a contracted, negative, low frequency state. And that's what's it's going to create more of the same, like attracts like. So this is why it's so important to learn how to view the events in your life from a different perception, from a different level of consciousness, like I've done with my first marriage. So now, when I think of my first husband, I expand with love and gratitude. You know, I really do. Because, you know, and I focus on all the positive, you know, because it was a massive learning curve and it was the greatest gift because it's what pushed me to learn to love myself. So and anything that pushes us to learn to love ourselves is the greatest gift. When you can look at events in your life with a blessing and with love and with an expansion, with a heart that's expanding with love and gratitude, that's when you get further up this chart. That's when you start looking at life from a different perception. But it's difficult to do that with all walks of life. But when we realize that we are literally all one, a lot of people in the truther community are talking about fighting. You know, we talk about this is a spiritual war. Well, it's a spiritual universe. If you use the word war, war on this chart would be in a contracted state. If you use the word fighting, right, we've got to fight for our rights. We've got to fight against the evil. We've got to fight. That's all contracted, and you're forcing stuff. And also, if we are, I'm going back to the Rumi quote, if we are the whole universe in one human being, then we are literally just fighting with ourselves. We're creating drama within the cells of our body. We're creating, you know, all of this light versus dark. You know, we're making everything a duality. Everything we're using, like they're taking the polar opposites, and we're taking the opposites and fighting with them. I mean, that's all very unconscious behavior, because it's not about fighting the evil. And I'm going to say it's about loving the evil. And that's not going to resonate with you if you're at the level of, you know, fear, anger, or what have you. You know, what do you mean love the evil? Of course, we can't love the evil. You know, well, when you understand that you have to love like it's like me loving the woman, the English woman in India. You know, I can look at her with love now because she thought she was doing okay and she was thinking that she was doing better than her friends and what have you. I can love her like that. When you look at a child and you see them behaving unconsciously, you don't hate them, do you love them, but then you go and educate them and you just shine some light on the situation. And that's what it's about, shining some light on the situation. But we need to learn to love all that is. And when we understand that any evil in the physical world, it's only a reflection of the evil within each and every one of us, which is why this inner work is so important. Because when you can release any unconscious behaviors, unconscious thinking within your own being, then you are releasing it from the collective as well. Now, I think I said it also a bit about everything exists. So it's not that we can wipe it out because everyone's put their consciousness on evil now. And so, yes, everything exists. It's not about stopping it from existing, because the more you think about it and put your consciousness on it, the more it's going to exist, because that's the mentalism of the first principle of the Hermetic principles of the universe. Okay. But what we do is we improve our own life. I know it sounds selfish. You're not putting your head in the sand at all. You're the whole universe. So improve your own life. And then you're improving the life of the whole universe, because you are that powerful, but you don't realize you're that powerful. And you're having difficulty getting your head around the fact that you're that powerful. But there's a lot of people already living in heaven on earth, because their level of consciousness is already above love or above on this chart. And You might think, oh, they're not doing anything. They're namby-pamby sitting around meditating. They're not doing anything. We need to be, fighting and all of this. It's a level of perception, because when you're in an expanded state, that's where your power lies. That's where your power lies. And your power lies in loving. And that's not going to resonate with you if you're not at that level, but it's a quantum truth. And I started this by saying, this is the most important quantum truth that we need. And the quantum truth is that our power lies in our loving, in loving. Love is the power. And you hear this and it sounds corny, because it's just like, oh, the hippies, but it's a quantum truth. Your power lies in loving. So when you can love everything, take the judgment away and look at everything as just creation, less conscious creation, undesirable, less conscious creation. Yes, it's undesirable. We don't desire this. We don't prefer it. It's not our preference to have this, undesirable, unconscious behavior. But we're going to put our consciousness on how we want to behave. So we're going to create a reality for ourselves by shopping only with people that are at your level of consciousness, people that are, growing their own vegetables and are in love and passionate about what they do, mixing with people that raise your frequency, not lower it, all these things that we need to do. That's, and putting our consciousness on that. Because everything exists, but you're only going to experience that which you resonate with. So it's important that we find services from people that we resonate with. I mean, still a big one, of course, is the banks. You walk into a bank and you can just feel the energy being sucked out of you. So yeah, we are a lot of people talking about finding other ways. We all know about that. Well, we don't know all about it, but you know what I mean. But again, there's a lot of healing communities coming up. I live in one in Costa Blanca, where, a lot of people get their healing without having to walk into a hospital or anything. It's about finding people that are resonating at your frequency, and investing your energy, your money, your time, your resources, and your energy, investing it in people that you want to grow, even if it's a little bit inconvenient. A lot of these organic fruit and veg people, it's a little bit inconvenient. It's a little bit more expensive. Sometimes the fruit doesn't last that long, and it's not ideal. But then you walk into a supermarket and you think, hang on a minute, how does that fruit look so great? What's happened to it? I mean, you've got to go with your heart on these things. You've got to follow your heart all the way. And when the doubt comes up, you've got to still follow your heart, because your heart won't get it wrong for you. Your heart will take you where you need to go. And it might not always be pleasant, and it might not always be easy. And yes, there's something called divine chaos. And you might have to go through some divine chaos. It might be a relationship ending or a job ending, or, you might have to move house, or something unpleasant's going on. But it's the only way the universe can get you to where you need to be. So surrender. My favorite affirmation is, I am ready and willing to allow my full potential. I am ready and willing to allow my soul's full potential. And that will take you to places where you can really express who you are, and live create a reality with other people that are at your level of consciousness. And it's not turning your back on what's going on in the matrix. You're just creating through your own consciousness. And then you can look, once you've dealt with all those emotions within yourself, the grief, the sadness, the disgust, all of these things, then you can look at unconscious behavior of others. Okay, so that includes all the stuff going on. You can observe it with an open heart of love and compassion for the victims and for the perpetrators. Because that's where we need to get to. This is the most important quantum truth at the moment. We need to get to that stage where we can open our hearts with love and compassion for everybody involved in physical disharmony, shall we call it. But putting our consciousness on it takes us there. Oh, I heard this quote this is from Paul Selig in the Guides. He said, when you put someone in the darkness, they will take you to the darkness. I think that's really important. That might be a really good way to end this video as well. When you put somebody in the darkness, that means judging them, making them wrong. Then they will take you to the darkness because you're judging yourself. You're judging a part of yourself. You're making a part of yourself wrong. You're living in a world of right and wrong. That's a contracted state. It's not about expanding into higher levels of consciousness so you can look at that unconscious behavior with love and compassion, understanding, and even gratitude. Because without this stuff going on that we've all become aware of in the last few years, we wouldn't have woken up this amount. We wouldn't have woken up this much. I know I wouldn't have done. So I, for one, however horrible it is, there is some gratitude there. And often when I look at the victims, I just have gratitude for them because I'm like, you on a soul level, they chose the most difficult path. On a soul level, they chose the most difficult path. And they did it for us. We are all one still. But at least that makes me feel gratitude and love rather than sadness, grief, despair, or anything that's going to lower my frequency. So, I hope that helps view things from a different perspective. I think I've gone on quite a long time, so I'm going to stop it there. If you are interested in this stuff, take a look at the description because I've got links and videos in the end screen and stuff like that. So yeah, hopefully that's it. I was inspired to do it. Hopefully I've covered most of it. I hope it doesn't sound too much like a ramble, but if you made it to the end, well done. Congratulations. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. Take care. See you in a minute.